Okay, now we're going to go back to the New World and kind of tie up all those loose ends as to why the Europeans came to the New World and how we became the colonies, leading towards who we are today. So remember those three G's? Remember gold, God, glory? All of those countries, remember France, Spain, England, Germany, the Dutch, they were all in competition to get the most gold and silver that they possibly could. That way you could have the most glory. So, mercantilism is an economic system in which a country tries to increase its wealth and power by getting large amounts of gold and silver. Mercantilism, just think gold, silver. That is how you get a higher amount of wealth and therefore more power. That glory thing. So the gold equals glory to a lot of people. So in order to do this, countries get large amounts of gold and silver through establishing a favorable balance of trade. Now, what's a favorable balance of trade, you ask? Well, let's check it out. Okay, so a favorable balance of trade is when you sell more than you buy. Therefore, more gold is coming in than is going out, which means you make a profit. All businesses want a favorable balance of trade where you're selling far more than you're buying. That way, you're making a lot of money. Now, the purpose of the colonies was to help enrich England's economy and increase England's wealth, therefore increasing England's glory. So, the colonies' role, their entire purpose was to serve as a market for the British manufactured goods and then also be a source for the raw materials. So, for example, if I'm a farmer in South Carolina, I have cotton. I've got that raw cotton. Well, I don't have the machines to make clothing, so what I do, I sell the cotton over to England. England then turns that cotton in their factories into clothing. They bring that clothing back to the colonies and sell it for a profit. So, imported goods from Britain, so the stuff that we bought here in the colonies, was furniture, utensils, books, china. Stuff that we sold, our raw materials to Britain, were lumber, furs, fish, tobacco, things that they didn't have a lot of in England. But the colonies also exported or sold goods, raw materials, to other harbors. We were selling to Spain, France, and Holland. England really didn't like this. They were like, wait a minute, you're our colony. Why are you selling to these other countries? This isn't going to help us here. So they saw this trading as a threat to their own power and glory. So they came up with the Navigation Acts, which said that the colonies can't trade with foreign countries unless those goods pass through an English port first, which, by the way, they were taxed in that English port, and then the goods were shipped on colonial or English ships. So that's the only way they can be traded with foreign countries because that means England gets a profit off of it. Or the vessels or ships were operated by crews that were at least 3/4 English or colonial. So the colonies could export certain products only to England. Therefore, England got the most money out of those products. So England was really, really trying to stifle any work that could be done with these other countries. The colonies were basically put on a leash and said, hey, look, you are only selling to the people we are allowing you to sell to, and how you are allowing them to sell to. So the effects of those acts, I mean, do you really think that the colonists were very happy about them? It created a lot of jobs for English dock workers because they had to check all of the ships. The import taxes helped boost the English treasury, stuff those pockets a little more. And they also, restricting that trade, spurred an increase in colonial shipbuilding, because if it could only be colonial ships or English ships, of course you're going to make more colonial and English ships in order to make more profits. So, an effect of this is the salutary neglect. So Parliament tightened its grip, but it loosened it at the same time. So the Navigation Acts were stricter, but they were more loosely enforced. So as long as the raw materials were flowing to England and the colonists continued to purchase English goods, Parliament didn't look too closely at what the colonists were doing. So again, tightened it a little bit, but at the same time loosened all of these restrictions. So effects of that neglect, there was a lot of self-governance in the colonies. The people in the colonies were like, well, wait a minute, if Parliament's not really paying attention to us, let's do our own thing. Let's come up with our own self-governments. So that came up in not only politics, but it came up in economics as well. They were making their own laws about how to sell things or manufacture things. They were making their own laws in the colonies. So they started to become very self-sufficient and not very needy of Mother England. So the royal governors, the people that were appointed by the king to go lead the colonies, they were strong in theory or on paper, but they were paid for by the colonial assembly. The colonial assembly was created by the colonies. So they paid those governors, and they yeah. So they were influenced by these colonial rules, and this all planted the seeds of independence for the future. So now, tying this all up in a neat little bow, the colonies were created for religious and economic purposes, gold, God, glory, but they grew and matured, just like pretty much any kid does. Kid is born, it grows up, and through growing up, it gets these freedoms, like, hey mom, can I borrow the car tonight? Or, can I really, really get that cell phone, please? So you get these seeds of independence before they become their own. So this is where we end the whole discovery, exploration, and colonial beginnings. Now, after this unit, we're going to go ahead and look into the discontent and the revolutionary period of the United States.